يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كلام الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. عباد الله, as Muslims, Allah, we are responsible for our deen of Islam. And believe me, Allah ASWJ, He was asked us on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah, what did we do when this big epidemic broke out in our Ummah? Now there are some of us who are interested in these issues, and they do their utmost and try their best. And there are some of us, we just turn a blind eye and we just follow all the rest. Today, Ibadullah, we're going to look at the state of our Ummah in the light of the prophecies of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Now, Ibadullah, the cause of the weakness of us Muslims today is due to us having strayed and left our clear, pure deen of Islam. That humiliation has entered into our ranks, yes, why? For the very, very same reason, Ibadullah. No doubt strange philosophies and ideologies, they do pose a great threat. But who can deny the internal differences and disagreements that played a greater role in tampering with the purity of Islamic beliefs and simplicity of its practices? That sicknesses and diseases in the Muslims' hearts bring out worldly calamities? Yes, they do. Also, being far away from the Sunnah and the increase of innovative groups is another cause for weakness and also humiliation, my dear brothers in Islam. Only those with insight realize this, and it is a fault on all of us to follow the Quran and the Sunnah, for they are free from all of these issues. So a detailed explanation of the many ahadith mentioning the prophecies of our Ummah's downfall, this is very, very, very necessary for those of us who really care about the deen of Islam. Now we must know, my dear brothers in Islam, that our Prophet ﷺ, he was sent to everyone on this dunya, not just to us Muslims, to explain and clarify what is good and to bring us closer to Allah ASWJ. Also to all that what is evil and would distance us from Allah ASWJ. The reason being that life with all its varieties, with all its colors and manifestations is built upon two important matters. Firstly, knowing the good in order to follow it. And secondly, knowing the evil in order to keep away from it. For example, in the matter of Tawheed of Allah, the crux, the heart of our deen of Islam is built on Iman in Allah ASWJ. And the rejection of shirk, kufr and taghut. Iman in Allah is good, while belief in taghut is evil. Therefore, we must recognize what is good in order to follow it, while also knowing what is evil so that we can keep away from it. Also in the matter of calling to Allah in the da'wah, which is built on ordering the good, which is in Arabic the ma'ruf, and forbidding the evil, which is known as the munkar. Now to order the ma'ruf is good and is to be followed, while munkar is evil and this is to be kept away from, to be shunned, ibadullah. Likewise also an ittiba', which is the following of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, which is built on following his sunnah and turning away from innovation, bid'ah, ibadullah. Sunnah is good and is to be followed, while innovation, the bid'ah, this, it is to be kept away from and to be shunned. I don't think we realize how really important and serious this matter is. We must obey and love our Prophet ﷺ, be content with his judgment, hold him in great esteem, and follow and have conviction in the guidance sent down to him, as Allah tells us in Surah At-Tawbah. Listen carefully, Allah. Say, if your fathers, if your sons, if your brothers, if your wives, if your kindred and the wealth that you have gained, the commerce in which you fear a decline, and the dwellings, the houses in which you delight, are dearer to you than Allah and His Messenger, and striving hard and fighting in His cause, then wait until Allah brings about His decision, and Allah guides not al-fasiqun. Subhanallah. Now, our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he informed us of events, of issues that will befall our ummah. Some speak of good, showing also that the future, that the power and the honor, it is for us Muslims, yes. And that they will be established in the land. Others warn us against those evil matters that would distance us from Allah ASWJ and make us weak in front of other nations. Today we will discuss those that mention these two types of weaknesses about Allah. Now let us look at the first weakness. We have in a hadith from Khutbah radiallahu anhu, who was the freed slave of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, where our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, the nations are about to call each other and to sit upon you just as diners, not people who are eating, sit upon their food. It was said, Ya Rasulullah, will it be of a small number on that day? Listen to what he said. He said, rather on that day you will be many, but you will be like the foam on the river, on the sea. What you know when the waves come to the shore, we have the bubbles on it. You will be like the foam on the river, and Allah will remove the fear of you from your enemies' hearts and throw wahan. What is wahan? Wahan is weakness into yours. Then someone asked, Ya Rasulullah, what is wahan? And he says, love for this dunya and hatred for death. Hadith Sahih Abu Dawud. Love for this dunya and hatred for death. This hadith, ibadallah, it explains the first form of weakness which has befallen our ummah in not only here, in all corners of the world, and as a result of why inclining to this world, to this dunya. Love for it and being preoccupied with it, while turning away from the akhirah, being distant from it, and hatred for death. Why do we hate to die, ibadallah? Because here we have built up a virtual palace for us, and we are scared to leave here what we have built up to go to something which we haven't built up. Hatred for death is a sign of loving this dunya. Since those of us who love this world, they hate death because of, with death, what comes with it? Of course, it comes to meeting with Allah ASWJ. Now let us look at some benefits quickly from this hadith about Allah. From this hadith, we can conclude the following, that the disbelievers, what do? They closely watch, they observe the Muslim ummah to study their condition. And when they see a weakness or they see a barrier, they strike at it to destroy it. When they see the ummah cannot defend itself any longer, they do not show mercy, since they are Allah's enemies. So they hate the Muslims. Why? Because the Muslims are those who call to Allah's obedience and to Allah's ibadah, to His worship. Secondly, ibadallah, the Muslim lands own so many riches today, being sources of good and blessings. And this is why Allah's enemies, they wish and desire those lands. Why? So that they can try to conquer them. We see this every day, ibadallah. Our ummah has reached a level where it cannot defend its honor any longer, cannot defend its riches or wealth from its conquering enemies. We can't. The disbelievers have been divided the Muslims has conquered lands between themselves, just like I said in the beginning. Diners like eaters gather around their dish, and what do? Each one of them, they take their portion until he is full, and he will not be satisfied with what is in his plate, except that which fills. And our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he warned us about this, the cutting up of the Muslim lands, for he said, you will form different armies, an army in Greater Syria, Asham, an army in Iraq, and an army in Yemen. And then he was asked, which one shall I be with, Ya Rasulullah? And he replied, I advise you to be with the army of Asham. And whoever refuses, then let him join the army of Yemen. And beware, he said, for indeed Allah has guaranteed Asham and his people for me. Hadith Sahih Imam Ahmad. Then fifthly, ibadah, that the disbelievers do not fear us Muslims no longer anymore. They're not scared of us anymore. At the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when the disbelievers heard that he was preparing to engage in a battle, they would become fearful and they would turn on their heels and they would run. This happened at the Battle of Tabuk, and here the Prophet traveled for a month's journey to fight the Romans. And when they heard of his approach, what did they do? They fled. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he said, listen to what he said. He said, I was given 5 things which no one else was given before me. I was helped. I was aided with fear, a distance of a month's travel. Sahih Hadith from Al-Bukhari. Allah tells us in Surah Al-Imran, soon we shall cast terror into the hearts of the disbelievers, for that they made shirk for which they had no authority. Indeed, Allah, fear is a weapon that Allah implants into his enemies' hearts. And that is why our strength is not in our great numbers, or in our weapons, or in our wealth. No, but it is in our aqeedah, in our belief, and us sticking to this. For today, there are plenty of Muslims, Allah. There are plenty, but they are like the foam carried by the waves of the water. And their riches are many, but cannot be for them. Why? Rather, it has become the possessions of the enemies. For example, the Muslims today, approximately, they have over 1 billion. They approximate over 1 billion and grow in number every day. Every day we're growing. However, at the same time, we are the weakest of nations in every country that they are in. Being persecuted, why? Because they have become like the foam on the waves. Also, the Muslim lands own many, many riches and minerals, but where does it all end up? It ends up with the disbelievers either in Europe or in America. Or it goes to the Jews in Palestine, ibadullah. The Muslim oil makes up approximately 1/3 of the world's reserves. 1/3, ibadullah. But they are the poorest of people. Why? Because they do not own anything from their deen except a name. So they hold it, but all their riches, it belong to the enemies. The second type of weakness, ibadullah. The second form of weakness showing our condition today is our becoming very, very far away from the sunnah of our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Yes, we all say we do follow it. We all agree with you. And also from the correct manhaj, the methodology in a state of innovation. Our Prophet informed us that this in a hadith from Khutbah radiallahu anhu, where he said that the people, listen to what Khutbah asked. He said that the people used to ask the Prophet about the good. And I used to ask him about the evil. Why? Out of fear, being scared that it would reach me. So I asked him, Ya Rasulullah, we were living in ignorance and evil. And then Allah brought this good, referring to our deen of Islam, to us. So will there be any evil after this good? And he said, yes. I asked him then, so So, Ya Rasulullah, we are the living in ignorance, evil. Then Allah brought this good, so will there be any evil after this good? And he said, yes. And then he said, will there be any good after this evil? And then he replied, yes, but it will be tainted. It will be dirtied. So I asked, what will the dirtiness be? What will the taint be? And he replied, a people who guide others to other than my way. You will approve of some of the actions and disapprove of others. I further asked, then is there any evil after this good? And he said, yes. Call us at the gates of Dinar and hell. Whoever answers and responds to their call, they will be thrown into the hellfire. And then I asked, Ya Rasulullah, describe them to us. Describe them to us. And then he said, they will be from our people and speak our language. I asked, so what do you order me to do if that reaches me? Out of scaredness, he asked. And he said, stick to the jama'ah of the Muslims and the imam. And then I further asked him, what if they have neither a jama'ah or an imam? And he said, then keep away from all those sects, those groups, even if you have to bite upon the roots of a tree until death reaches you while you are in that state. Hadith Sahih from Al-Bukhari. Allahu Akbar. Now let us look at this hadith quickly about Allah. It states that you will approve of some of the actions and disapprove of others. What does this mean? It means that you will accept the sunnah from them and reject the bid'ah from them. And then it goes on, it says, yes, call us to the gate of Nar. It means call us inviting to the various deviated schools of thoughts that we have today, which will lead their followers to nowhere else but to the hellfire. And then it goes on, whoever responds, answers to their call, will be thrown into the hellfire. Means whoever obeys the callers of innovation and misguidance, his end will be in the Nar. And our Prophet said, every innovation is a misguidance, and every misguidance is in the Nar. So the innovation, ibadallah, is in the Nar. And whosoever obeys the callers of Sunnah, they will be led to Jannah. It goes on and it says, stick to the jama'ah of the Muslims and the imam. What does this mean? It means stick to the Islamic empire if they have one. So you migrate to it if they haven't got one among the Muslims. And do not stay in the believers' land and give the bayah to the Muslim leaders if they have one. I asked, what if neither of them have a jama'ah or an imam? What does this mean? He says, like today. Then keep away from all those 6 means. Keep away from the callers of misguidance and innovation, neither being of them, neither helping them or supporting them. Even if you have to bite upon the roots of a tree, it means sticking and clinging to the sunnah and its foundations. The meaning of this is not to stay in your houses and to abandon calling to Allah, no. Nor abandon ordering the good and forbidding the evil, no. Since our Prophet ﷺ, he said, hold fast to my sunnah and the sunnah of my rightly guided khalifas. Cling, he said, literally bite into it tightly. Hadith Sahih at-Tirmidhi. Here, Ibadullah, he ordered them to cling, to bite to the roots of the tree. So the roots of the tree, what does it mean here? It means nothing but our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam sunnah. Until death reaches you while you're in that state, it means to die in a state of Islam. As Allah tells us in Surah Ali Imran, وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا أَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ, and do not die except as a Muslim. Now our Prophet, he explained that clinging to this dunya, loving it whilst neglecting the akhirah and giving a greater share to worldly matters at the expense of it, is also from the causes of weakness amongst us Muslims. This does not mean that we should ignore this dunya, not work for it and become independent or dependent on others. No, rather we should work to obtain our sustenance and provision and support ourselves so that we are not in need of anybody else, ibadallah. Indeed, the word akhirah and dunya is mentioned in the Quran a many number of times. And this is a sign that we should keep a balance between this world and the akhirah. So we are obliged to keep this balance. Therefore, we should be sincere in our actions, intending them only for Allah's face and Allah's good pleasure. However, rivalry and love for this dunya, weakness, it debases us, it lowers us as Muslims today, about Allah. We have from Amr ibn al-Auf ibn al-Ansari, our Prophet sent Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah with the trustworthy one of this ummah to Bahrain to collect the jizya, the tax. And the Prophet made a treaty with them, the people of Bahrain, and appointed over them Al-Ala ibn Hadrami. So Abu Ubaidah, they returned with the money, and then the Ansar, they heard of his arrival and they went to pray Fajr with the Prophet Sallallahu. When the Prophet finished, he got up and he left, and so the Ansar, they approached him. And then he smiled and said, I think you heard that Abu Ubaidah returned with something, and they said, Ya Rasulullah. He said, then be happy and hope for what pleases you, for by Allah, I do not fear poverty for you, no. But I fear this world will be opened up for you, just as it was opened up for those before you. So you will compete with one another for it, just as they competed for it. And in the end, it will destroy you as it destroyed them. A hadith from Abdullah ibn Umar ibadullah, he shows that how love for this dunya is a reason for our ruin today. The Prophet said, O Muhajirun, you may be afflicted with 5 things. Allah forbid you if you live to see them. Firstly, if fornication and adultery become widespread, then know that this never happened without new diseases befalling the people which their forefathers never ever suffered. Secondly, if people begin to cheat in weighing out goods, then realize that this never happened without a drought and a famine befalling the people and their rulers oppressing them. Thirdly, if people withhold zakat, then they realize that this never happened without rain being stopped from people from falling down, and were not for their animals' sake, it would have never rained again. Fourthly, if people break their covenant with Allah and His Messenger, then they realize that this never happened without Allah sending an enemy against them and take some of their possessions by force, and this is happening today. And finally, if leaders do not rule according to Allah's book, then they realize that this never happened without Allah making them into groups and make them fight one another. Another issue that is happening today. Now, if fornication and adultery become widespread, they know this never happened. What does this mean? It means that if fahisha, if evil actions, if sexual iniquity appears in the ummah and fornication and adultery increases, then many strange diseases not known or experienced before will be accompanied by it. Like what? Today we have AIDS, we have syphilis. Diseases which now cause so many fear in the Western societies. Like America and Europe, even here in Ghana, they don't want to make this known. Since it is widespread in these communities to a well-known degree, rather it is considered a sign of progression, a sign of advancement. Tell me, Allah, tell me. How can this be a sign of advancement when the animals in the jungle are ashamed to do what these people are doing? Naked people in Africa and its forests, they feel too embarrassed. If nakedness in Allah was proof of progression, then the naked African people in the jungle, they would be the most advanced today. If people begin to cheat in weighing out goods, it means giving short measure. And this is now a common thing among us. If people withhold zakat, ibadullah, then realize this never happened, it means if it rains, then it is not because of them or the fact that they deserve it, but it is because of the animals as a mercy to them. Among those ahadith, ibadullah, which highlight the second form of weakness, and that is deviating from the guidance of our Prophet the hadith. Islam started as a stranger, and it will return to being a stranger in the same way it started. So tuba, a tree in Jannah, is for the strangers. Sahih hadith from Sahih Muslims. Now in the start, Islam was strange and weak in Mecca. The disbelievers did not know of it. Then people began to believe in Islam and entered it in many numbers, and then it spread and grew stronger, and it was no longer strange. Now after its strength and spread, it is returning once again to being a stranger as it first started. How can this be when the Muslims are great in number and their lands are plenty? Because the Muslims no longer understand the deen of Islam properly. They are far away from it, applying other than the Prophet ﷺ Sunnah, committing innovation in worship, thinking they follow Islam. So the correct Islam, the correct Sunnah, comes far away from their lives, like a stranger among the people, having no knowledge of it. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله ولكم إن الله غفور رحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. In conclusion, about Allah, how do we understand these hadith which point out these weaknesses that we have amongst us today? Do we merely accept them and remain weak, dependent on the West and remain from our deen? Our Prophet ﷺ, he did not intend this for us, for he explained these things in order for us to flee away from him. Like a parent, he says to his child, you know what, you don't go up this road because there's an animal waiting for you down there, up there to eat you. So this is a warning from the parent to the child not to take that path. So, firstly, when the Prophet informed us of these events which are not from him but from Allah, because he speaks nothing else but what is from Allah, it is a revelation inspired to him, and it is understood to prohibit taking the path that leads to that. Secondly, we have to work. We have to repel these weaknesses, to fight them, reject them, and not to be pleased with them, since it is an evil which has to be rejected. Thirdly, we have to acquire knowledge of the Quran and the Sunnah upon the understanding of the Salafus Salih, the first 3 generations of Muslims, in order to understand our state of affairs. Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu said, whoever is going to follow a path, listen to what he said about Allah. You should follow the path of those who have died. Those who have died, because the living, they could fail in their trials. Why? Because there is no guarantee that the living person will not fail in some of his trials. But the companions, ibadullah, where we've got to take our deen from, the Sahaba, they were given the stamp of approval. With anyone living, we will never know what the result would be, as Allah tells us in Surah Al-An'am. وَإِن تُطِعْ أَكْثَرَ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ يُضِلُّوكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ إِن يَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا الظَّنَّ وَإِنْهُمْ إِلَّا يَخْرُصُونَ. And if you obey most of those on this dunya, they will mislead you far away from Allah's path. They do nothing but conjecture, and they do nothing but lie. However, ibadullah, we have the newspapers, we have the magazines, we have the radio. Then these media sources, they belong to the disbelievers and nobody else. But it is part of our life. Will they be truthful in their narrations and solutions for us? Do you really think they want good for us as Muslims? Indeed, they do not spread except them weakens and makes us falsely believe in them in the West of Allah. Therefore, we must become people who understand the Quran and the Sunnah and know exactly what our enemies want from us, because Allah tells us in Surah Al-Baqarah, never ever will the Jews and the Christians be satisfied with you until you follow their way. We ask Allah Almighty for forgiveness, to grant us all the help and strength in doing straight in all our decisions, to protect, to guide, and to provide us with all the good. Yes, of all the halal sources of living, to complete all our shortcomings and best and rank us among the most pious of Muslims, to increase our knowledge, our deeds, and sincerity in delivering the message of Allah. And may Allah also make all of this in our scale of good deeds on the day of judgment, when no one of your children will be of any benefit, and only the saved are those who will meet Allah with the Muslim purified heart. Yes, I ask Allah to guide you and me, my dear brothers in Islam, to unite us on the truth, to forgive all the Muslims, the past, the present, and the future, the male and the female, the young and the old, the healthy and the sick, and may He gather us all in paradise, yes, in Jannatul Firdaus.